Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of My Unfair Advantage. In this episode, we're going to talk about branding power. This is very misunderstood, and branding is really something that you need to understand if you're going to grow your business to, the point where it's sellable in the future. If you're going to grow your business to the point where you're basically a household name, for the lack of a better expression. Branding power for your products and your business. This is what we're going to talk about. So, why is it important? Why is it important to brand properly? Well, did you know that Fortune 500 companies invest millions and millions of dollars into the branding of their products? This is a fact. There are companies out there that are branding companies, and they consist of huge focus groups of people and the ability to create surveys and focus groups, test markets, just to find out the appeal of certain names and certain colors and how people will respond to specific branding. And these companies make a lot of money by creating brands for other companies that want to release products into a marketplace. Proper branding creates an anchor in the customer's mind, which can be triggered by recurring events. When you really build a brand, every time that somebody has that recurring need in their life, your product is what's going to pop into their mind. And that is what branding is. Branding is that when you're driving down a road and you just see the golden arches, you know what's there. Sometimes just seeing the golden arches might make you hungry. It might actually remind you of the taste of the chicken McNuggets that you can get at McDonald's. And this is called powerful, proper branding. It literally creates an anchor in your mind. Sometimes it can even trigger smells. Sometimes it can trigger sounds. It literally can cause you to have a certain feeling and to cause you to take action on that feeling if the branding has been done properly. Proper branding also increases the perceived value of your product and your company. It makes you more sellable. So here's what I mean by that. A lot of people make the mistake of not looking at branding as something that they're going to need in the future for the purpose of selling their company at large or their brand at large. Sometimes we're, as internet marketers, we create little digital information products like ebooks and things like that, and we put our own name to them, right? So I made this mistake in the beginning. I said like Omar Martin's Secrets to Success.com or whatever. That's just an example, right? But how sellable is that later? If I sell that to someone, I literally have to sell my name to them. And when I mean by sell it, I mean license it. I mean, imagine if my company name is Omar Martin Inc. When I sell that, I literally have to sell me. That company becomes of little value without me because I literally am the brand. My face, my image, my name is the brand. So it becomes tough to sell that later. And if you spent years creating products, launching products, and creating a brand for yourself, something that's known and recognized in a particular marketplace, then when it comes time to sell it, maybe for a couple $1 million or what have you, after all of the work that you've done branding yourself, somebody like myself who could be a potential buyer of your company says, well, hold on a second, why would I buy this without you? This brand is no good because it's yourname.com or it's your name is on every single product. Your face is on every single product cover. That doesn't mean that you can't be on the inside of the product, teaching, training, and so on. I'm saying on the front cover, on the name, on the logo, that kind of thing. When you proper brand something, it's going to increase the value of your product and your company, and it's going to make the entire thing more sellable later on. It's also going to rejuvenate some products. Let me tell you a little story about a company that you might know called Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble paid over $1 million to another company called Lexicon Branding. Lexicon Branding is a branding company. And like I said earlier, there are companies like this out there that they just have branding and they just have scientific studies and they do all kinds of things to figure out what name, what marketing angle, what logo, what concept, what story, what brand is going to make more money for a product and a company. That is what Procter & Gamble went to Lexicon Branding for. That's the service that they hired them for. See, Procter & Gamble had this product on the shelves for years, and they weren't selling it. It just wasn't making them any money. And in 1998, they decided, well, after 20 years of having this product on the shelves, I think that the bean counters over at Procter & Gamble said, well, I think it's time to do something with this. There's probably a market for this, and they decided that we're going to hire Lexicon Branding to repackage this, to give it a name, to give it a brand, and they did. And that product that had existed in Procter & Gamble's portfolio, in Procter & Gamble's product catalog for years, almost 20 years, in 1998, all of a sudden, after having hired Lexicon, became their #1 selling product called Febreze. So this was an air freshener type of product that it existed for years, but then they couldn't sell it. It was one of their signature products. They couldn't sell it. Then they hired this company to name it Febreze, and to give it this logo, this color scheme, right? The window, the gust of wind coming through, to brand it as a particular thing. I actually read this on a website. I'm actually going to quote a website. One of the biggest problems that Procter & Gamble's research has discovered was that bad smells simply didn't happen often enough in a consumer's life. Interviews showed that consumers liked Febreze when they used it, but that many customers simply forgot that it was in the house. The researchers at Procter & Gamble and Lexicon Branding realized, academic findings on habit formation, by the way, that they had enormous implications for selling Febreze. Because bad smells occurred too infrequently for Febreze habit to form. So they were trying to sell their air freshener based on, hey, when you have a bad smell in the house, spray this, right? But bad smells in the house don't happen often enough for them to sell this enough, right? So it's like, okay, so when you cook fish, how often do you really cook fish in the house? Well, let me tell you, some houses, bad smells happen more often than others. But at large, as a company, it just wasn't enough. The fact, trying to anchor the need for this product to a bad smell occasion was not enough for them to truly make enough money with this and to sell it, because it just wasn't habit forming. So the marketers started looking for more regular cues on which they could capitalize, more regular cues which they could anchor this product to. The perfect cue, they eventually realized, was the act of cleaning a room, something that studies showed their target audience did almost daily. So think about that. Procter & Gamble, with Lexicon's help, they started producing commercials showing women spraying Febreze on a perfectly made bed, right? An act that you do every day. Spritzing it on freshly laundered clothing, an act that you do much more often than you have, bad smells, right? The product's imagery was revamped to incorporate open windows and gusts of fresh wind, an airing that is part of the physical and emotional cleaning ritual. In a sense, the product originally intended for use on piles of smelly, dirty clothes was eclipsed by its exact opposite, a product used when women confronted a clean and tidy living room. And the more women sprayed, the more automatic the behavior became. So do you understand how this repositioning that took place in 1998 created a boom in this company? Febreze is their #1 brand now. It's their #1 product. They have others, which by the way, Lexicon has helped them build like Swiffer, things like that. But Febreze went from, totally dead, not making them any money, sitting on the shelves, to a brand new, literally, no pun intended, a breath of fresh air for the company, just because of the branding, the positioning, and the message, the story, in essence, that it told through their commercials and through everything that had to do with the product, okay? So Here are some other brands, right, that actually that particular company, Lexicon Branding, took part in. BlackBerry. Think about that. BlackBerry. Why the hell would you name a phone, a technical device, BlackBerry? Well, focus groups, they actually proved in the studies that that particular name responded better. People were just more prone to, they were happier holding the device if it was called a BlackBerry. And there's different way and reasoning behind that. I'm not going to get into the story about that one, even though it is interesting. But look at some of these other names, like names that in many ways don't even have anything to do in particular with the product itself, right? Dasani. How the heck does Dasani have anything to do with water? OnStar for General Motors, right? How does OnStar have anything to do? Well, in one way or another, the guiding light, the North Star, I guess those particular words tested well in these focus groups. Intel Pentium, DeskJet, Scion, right? The Scion car, Swiffer, right? We were talking about Swiffer earlier. So just some of the brands the name, like I said, is just a catchy short. And look at some of the things that these names have in common. They're short, they're sweet, and they're branded. So you know what Febreze is. You know what Dasani is. By looking at that logo, by just saying the name, you know what these things are because of the branding, because of the way that the story has been put together, the way that it's been connected, the way that the value proposition has been connected to the audience, and just the repetition that there's been in all sorts of media with those particular words. Okay, and this is what makes them memorable brands. So let's talk about using these tactics to create your brand. You got to remember a couple things. Your brand is not just your logo, right? So I mentioned how the logo, the colors of the Febreze, of the whole new Febreze brand, I mentioned how those things were important, and we're going to even talk a little bit more detail about color and how that has to do with logo and branding, right? But I also mentioned how important it was to anchor the situation and the time that you want that anchor to be branded into that. I mean, literally, think of what a brand is, right? When you brand cattle, when you literally burn a brand into the cattle, where you're literally branding your product into someone's brain, into the customer's brain. That is what branding means. They're forever going to remember and have that brand in their skull because of the proper branding that you did. And it's not just about the logo. It's not just about the design of the logo. It's the whole enchilada. It's the name. The way that you created the name, is it catchy? Is it short enough? Does it bring up the right imagery in the person's mind? The logo itself, was it designed properly? Is it too busy? Does it have too much stuff? Sometimes people, they create all these logos with fire and flames and things shooting out all over the place and lines, and it looks great on a huge screen, but then when you reduce it down to a website, it just looks like blurry and messy and terrible. Right? So it's the logo, the colors that you're using. Colors and emotions are very, very, very connected. Certain colors, they inspire certain feelings. Literally, colors can trigger feelings just like aromas can. So colors are important. The slogan that you use beneath your logo is very, very important because it's going to start a chain reaction of thoughts that are going to start taking place in the potential customer's mind. Positioning is another thing. So are you positioning your product as a solution, or are you positioning your product as, when you think about positioning, you got to keep in mind the reason for buying. People generally buy they buy products and they generally take action for two reasons. Now, you can break these down into a million different ways, but they generally tend to fall into two categories. They either they buy things and they take action either because they want to increase pleasure or they want to decrease pain. So they either want to make something better or they want to remove something that's bad, right? And that's all about positioning. So how are you going to position your product and your brand? Is it going to increase pleasure or is it going to decrease pain? Very important. And you need to choose one of those angles. If you try doing both of them, you're going to cause confusion, right? Anchoring. Are you anchoring to the proper event in the consumer's mind, in their life? So Procter & Gamble made the mistake of trying to anchor their product to bad smells. So hey, but it was the logical decision at first, right? Well, this thing makes bad smells go away, so let's brand the product in a way that every time someone has a bad smell, they reach for our product. But the thing is that bad smells don't happen often enough in people's lives to build a multi-gazillion-dollar brand with this product. So instead, they anchored the product to an event that happens more often in people's lives. So these are important. The other thing is the marketing. Where is the audience and how are you going to market to that audience? So yeah, now you've got the right name, the right logo, the right colors, the right slogan. You know how to position the message, and you even know what event in people's lives to anchor to. But how are you going to reveal it to them? Are you going to use audio? Are you going to use video? Are you going to use billboards? How are you going to raise awareness of that brand? And if you've followed my teachings in the past, you know that that is what marketing is. It's not selling. There's a big difference between marketing and selling. Marketing is the raising of awareness to a brand. It's making it so that they know the brand and they understand what it is. They can connect to the story and the need for that product. Selling that product and commanding action and getting them to give you their credit card is something completely different. The audience. Who is the audience? Sometimes you're doing the right marketing to the wrong people. Right? So if you're trying to sell steaks in a vegetarian neighborhood, you're going to have a hard time, even if your steak marketing, positioning, logo, color, slogan, everything is awesome. So again, creating your brand is not just about a logo. It's about the whole enchilada. And it comes down to what is the message? What is the overall message that is comprised by the name, logo, color, slogan, positioning, anchoring, marketing, and the audience itself? What is the message for your product and your company? And you need to start thinking like this when you launch brands, when you create new products in your business, even if they're digital products. Now, don't get so overwhelmed with the creating of a brand that it precludes you from taking action, which is another problem that a lot of us have in the internet marketing space. It's called paralysis by analysis. We spend so much time over analyzing things and trying to get the idea to perfection in our heads before we take one little step forward. All I'm saying is that you need to be mindful about these things when you're creating your brand, your brand rather. And you need to be mindful in the sense, well, you don't want to create website URLs that are like, everybody makes this mistake in the beginning. They do things like myawesomesuperduperlistbuildingcourse.com. Brand that. How the heck are you going to brand that, right? Compare that brand with Febreze.com, right? So again, you need to keep all of these things in mind when you're creating those product names and logos. And we're going to get into a little bit more detail with it. We're going to talk a little bit about the image that you need to put in people's minds. Your image is not just the logo. It's everything. It's the actual picture in the mind's eye of the consumer. That is the image. And a lot of things comprise that image, a lot more than your logo. All of their senses come into play. Smell, taste, sound, everything comes into place. Like the example that I made earlier with McDonald's, right? So sometimes image can have a negative effect as well, right? So sometimes if you anchor something with a bad experience, for example, I'll never drink Southern Comfort, no matter how good the branding is, because everybody's had that young drinking experience with one particular liquor. Mine was Southern Comfort. Now the smell of it alone brings back that heaving, right? I can drink other liquors, but not that one. This is a good experience, a good example of negative branding, right? So that logo, I'm oh my goodness, I'm feeling it right now even. It's just that powerful. So your name and your image should trigger certain emotions in the viewer, and this can be accomplished a number of ways, including colors and association. Association is what I'm talking about right now, where I associate that Southern Comfort brand with a bad experience in my past, and therefore that's called negative branding. So in your particular case, for all of your products, your goal as a product creator, as the marketer, as the vendor, is to associate your brand with good experiences, with positive things. And that, together with the imagery, with the logo, the colors, the slogan, the positioning, the marketing, the message, all of that stuff, that's going to compose the image that's going to trigger the proper emotion. Let's talk about colors. Here's a color emotion guide, right? And this is how intense this is. Did you know that certain colors in certain logos, they literally create and they activate certain neurocenters of your brain. This is a fact. This is neurology. This is reality. This is not like, like some kind of theory. This is a fact. Yellows and golds, they symbolize optimism, clarity, and warmth. So look at some of these logos that portray optimism, clarity. Nikon, UPS, look at Subway, look at Best Buy, AOL, and how about that one? McDonald's. I mean, look at all these different brands that signify optimism. How about orange? Orange signifies in our brains, it triggers friendliness, cheerful, confident. Nickelodeon, Hooters, of course, alongside Nickelodeon, imagine that. Amazon, Firefox, Fanta, Stars, Harley Davidson, Crush, Gulf Gasoline. Are they even around anymore? How about red? Excitement, youthful, bold. Kellogg's, Kmart, Coca-Cola, Ace Hardware, Exxon, Netflix, Avis Car Rental, Nabisco. Huge brands, and they're all associated with excitement. Budweiser, associated with excitement. How about these guys over here? Creative and imaginative. Wise. Sci-Fi Channel is purple. Big Brother and Big Sister, purple. Yahoo, purple. It's creative. It's wise. Taco Bell, fourth meal. So you see these relations, see these correlations. Blue, trust, dependable, strong. Did you know that blue is one of the highest converting colors for your website? This has been tested. It's been proven. Why? Because it establishes trust. It establishes dependable strength in the eyes. This is all done subconsciously. On a subconscious level, these emotions are being triggered simply by the color you've chosen. But you think your thing looks great in yellow and red and purple and neon and glowing, glaring stuff. But at the end of the day, in reality, simple blues and grays tend to convert really, really well on websites. Dell, Lowe's, American Express, Hewlett-Packard, Oreo. Peaceful is green. Peaceful, growth, health, healing. These are earth colors, right? So peaceful palettes like, light blues, light greens, even some browns, earth tones. John Deere, you've got Whole Foods, BP, Monster, Starbucks. How about balance? Gray. Balance is neutral and calm. So the Apple logo is gray. Wikipedia is gray. Honda, Puma. So again, these are some of the different trigger points with colors. And how about logos that try to hit every single one of these points? Colorful colors like NBC that have every single color in this spectrum. Google has every single color in this spectrum. So eBay is another one. So again, these are things that you should consider when you're creating your logo, when you're selecting a palette to give to your graphic designer. You should consider the emotion guide and the role that color plays in the emotion that's triggered by your brand. So let's be more specific about the creation of your brand. I have 6 things to go over. When you're creating your brand, you should put some thought into it. Don't put that much thought into it that it will preclude you from even starting in the creation of your product. But overall, you should have a method to your madness. Collect the backstory. What's the culture of your product? What's the culture of your audience? Are you addressing the culture, the opportunity, and the challenge with your product, with your brand, right? So are you addressing, is your brand addressing these things that your product hits on? So if your product is going to be addressing these things for the prospect, for the buyer, then your brand should address them as well. It should address the culture, the type of people. There's a certain type of people that are associated with a certain type of product. And if you think that that's wrong, well, you don't know marketing. You have to market to a target audience. The worst thing that you could do in your marketing is to try to make everybody happy. You may think that you live in a perfect world where people do not judge you and do not categorize you, but you are wrong. We live in an imperfect world, especially when it comes to marketing. People will judge you. People will categorize you. As a matter of fact, the main category that you're going to be put in is going to be either you're good or you're bad. as a product, as a vendor. So you need to make sure that you're appealing to the right people. You need to put together the story of your product, and to do that, you need to make sure that you're touching on the right culture, on the right opportunity, and that you're touching on the right challenge. So, are you addressing the right challenge in people's lives? Are you presenting the right opportunity in people's lives? And are you addressing the right people, the right culture? Okay? Characterize your brand. Explain the values of your brand with the story, right? So essentially, remember, the brand is the overall message that's comprised by everything that we've been talking about, right? And essentially, when we're comprising a message, we're comprising a story about our product. And you need to have values, right? So what are the values of your product? Shape the story and the brand around those values. What do you represent? What do you stand for? So that's the second part of creating your brand. The next thing is characterizing the prospect. Identify their needs, because like I said earlier, it doesn't matter if you have the awesomest marketing, story, branding, everything. If you're going after the wrong prospect with that awesome marketing, if you're trying to sell steaks in a vegetarian neighborhood going door to door, you haven't properly identified the prospect's needs in that neighborhood. Okay, so you need to characterize those prospects and make sure you understand their needs. Connect the characters. Okay, now this is important, because this is where you actually start connecting the dots. The story has to bond the characters. It has to bond them to the brand. So are you connecting the challenge, the opportunity, the culture? Are you connecting everything that your product addresses, all the issues that your product addresses and takes care of, either eliminates or enhances, right? Because we said it either increases pleasure or it decreases pain. So are you connecting those points with the characters, with the people that need them? Are you making the connection? Because just because you have something they need, and just because they need something you have, does not mean that you're presenting it in a way that they will understand it and make that connection. Okay, very, very important. And what I'm getting into there is, it's not how you say it, it's not what you say, it's how you say. Okay, you need to confront awareness, comprehension, confidence, and affinity. Okay. These four things are very, very important for you to confront. You need to confront the prospects, or the potential prospects' awareness. Do they know about the product? If not, you need to confront that issue, and you need to make sure that they know, that they're aware of the product's existence, of the brand's existence. Number two, you need to confront their comprehension issues of the product. Do they comprehend what it does? There is a big difference between knowing that the golden arches represent McDonald's and knowing that you could, and comprehending that you could buy food at McDonald's. Okay? There are two distinct differences there that you need to understand. So you need to confront their awareness of your brand versus their comprehension of your brand and what your product can do. You need to confront their confidence. So maybe once they know what your brand does, are they confident enough to buy it? Meaning, has your story, has your message connected the dots properly to give them the confidence to take action? And then once you've done those things, once you've confronted the awareness, the comprehension, and the confidence, you need to address their affinity. What is their affinity to your product? How likely are they to literally make a connection with their product, with that product, enough so to anchor it in their mind? Have you deeply ingrained and branded your message into them? Have you pushed the right buttons? Have you developed an affinity for your product in your prospect? Very, very important. And ultimately, complete the story. Connect their desires with your values. Okay, so if you've hit on all of these things, the summation of this brand is going to be by connecting your prospect's desire with your values. And once you've done that effectively and you've covered all of these things, you've built a brand that will literally trigger emotion and trigger action every time that an anchor happens in that person's life. Okay, everything you do becomes your brand. Everything you do becomes your brand. This is even more important now in the days of social media. Avoid your personal name on a product title whenever possible, especially when it comes to internet marketing. So, something like your name presents and then the name of a product. Yeah, okay. sometimes these delusions of grandeur, we want to see our name in lights, we want to see our own name all over the place. There's a big difference between putting your name on a cover of a product as its author, on the cover of a book, than to name the book with your own name, right? So there's a big difference between writing a book and claiming authorship than it is writing your autobiography. Okay, very, very different, because one is easily sellable later and can be sold by someone other than you. And if you use your own name in a product title, it doesn't make your company and your brand transferable later. Keep titles and logos short, catchy. Don't create these long, crazy URLs. Think of Twitter. Twitter. How the hell did they come up with Twitter? Right? What does that have to do with character update, with message updates and life posts and things like that? It doesn't, but it does now, because they've literally branded it in our brains that Twitter, oh, okay, I know what Twitter is. It's a website where you can type things that you're doing online and all of your friends see what you're doing, right? That's Twitter. But just the word alone, Twitter, if we were to remove our knowledge of what the site is, the name Twitter alone, it's like, what the hell is a Twitter? What does it mean to Twitter? It has no meaning on its own. They literally invented that word. Right? So again, I can even make the example here of a company that I used to work for. It was a pest control company that actually has a product. They have a patented product called, well, it used to be called tubes in the wall. And guess what it is? It's tubes in the wall for pest control. So during the construction of houses, our company would come, and during the framing stage of the house, they would literally install these tubes throughout the wall that are connected to a port box on the outside. So later on, after the house is built, pest control becomes very easy to do from the outside. And it literally gets injected and blown through the house, through the walls of the house, from the outside, without exposing your family or your pets to any, unneeded chemicals, while attacking the bugs in the walls where they live. So what's the problem with that? The problem with that is that the name is Tubes in the Wall Pest Control. And that's just not catchy. And they needed a Febreze name. So you know what my company did? Well, rather, the company that I worked for, they went to Lexicon Branding. And Lexicon Branding came up with a name called Tayex. They just made up that name called Tayex. They did studies on syllables and sounds, and they put together focus groups, and they asked them, what does this word make you feel like? And and then they slowly came down to two words, and our company vice president chose Tayex to be the word that represents tubes in the wall pest control system. So now in the building community, in the home builders community, the word Tayex literally is a household word, and they understand that Tayex means pest control system. But when the word literally Tayex has no meaning by definition, they literally created the word. So I'm not saying that you have to create an alphabet and have focus groups on syllables and sounds and punctuation and all that kind of stuff. But what I am saying is that you should keep titles and logos short, sweet, and phonetically appealing. Okay, so Twitter, it's easy to say. Tayex, it's easy to say. There isn't a gazillion syllables. It's not Omar Martin, super cool, awesome, listbuildingproduct.com, right? Totally, totally different, not as memorable. Use the name, the brand, the logo. Use your brand repetitively in the right place at the right times, right? Using the brand repetitively at the wrong place can be troublesome. It will create a negative anchor for your brand. You'll become that guy, that annoying person that's always pushing things on top of people at the wrong time. It's kind of like that person that shows up to your barbecue and suddenly tries selling Amway products. Right? We're at a barbecue. We're not here to sign up for a multi-level marketing thing, and we feel a little bit like, oh my God, I got tricked. I thought I was coming for a barbecue, and all of a sudden you got a whiteboard and easel set up, and you're trying to get me to give you money to sign up for something. You tricked me. So you might have a good brand and a good product, but this isn't the right place or the right time to try to push it upon me. It's important that you use your brand and your story and the collective of things that we've spoken about in this presentation, but it's more important that you're using it at the right time and at the right place. Remember that you're guilty by association. Everything you do becomes your brand. Everything you do becomes your brand. If you are allowing your customers to become part of your social media family, to follow you on YouTube, to follow you on Facebook, on Twitter, on Google Plus, and on any of those other social websites out there, they're associating your daily activity and posts with your brand, with who you are, with how you're branding yourself online. If you start associating yourself with negative activities, if you start to post pictures of you vomiting over the, bar this weekend, if you start associating yourself with things that are counterproductive to the elevation of your brand, then people will associate your brand with those negative anchors as well. This is why, as internet marketers, we have to be very cautious of the photos and things that are released out there, especially if we're doing business under our own names and we're running an honest and ethical business and we're being upfront and we're letting people know who we are. Hey, I am the creator of this product. I am the author of this product. Well, guess what? You're guilty by association now, because anything and everything that you do online will now be associated with that product, whether you like it or not. You do not live in that dream reality where it's okay to wear a bone through your nose and have purple hair and think that you're going to appeal to everyone. People will judge you by the things you do, by the way that you look, by the way that you dress, by the way that you smell, and definitely by the way that you act. And they will cast the same judgment that they cast on you, on your products, and anything that you create. Throughout history, this has been known to happen to families, right? How many families in history has the name been tainted because of something that a grandfather or a father did or something like that, right? It's been passed down, that tainting thing, because this is reality. And as much as we'd like to believe that we don't live in this world, this is the world that you're trying to sell products in. You're guilty by association. Everything you do becomes your brand. Your brand is the summation of all of its online parts. Everything you do becomes your brand, even the silly, stupid, and negative stuff. So as you're establishing yourself online, as you're creating your product, as you're thinking of that first logo, that first domain name, that first, whatever, as you're composing the brand of your company, what you want to represent, as you're constructing your message, consider all of the things that you do online. Consider all of the things that make up that message, everything we've spoken about in this presentation, and it'll help you to construe the message, the brand that you want to market, that will anchor itself in people's minds and that will recur to their conscious mind from their subconscious mind every time a particular instance happens in their lives, just like when a woman makes a bed in the morning and remembers, oh, I got to pull out the Febreze and spray it on my freshly made bed. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.